The vast majority of my time in the UK was spent in England, but I did venture across the border into Wales at one point. After riding aboard the Class 230 on the Borderlands line, our first port of call was the seaside town of Llandudno, which is home to the Great Orme Tramway, a decent fish and chip shop, a pier with what looked like a little funfair on it, although I didn't actually go on the pier, and, as one might expect, cheeky birds that try to steal your fish and chips. This seagull, at least I think it's a seagull, was particularly determined, but he only barely got his way. I've known about Llandudno for a long time now, partly thanks to the North Wales coastal route and Train Simulator. The original version was released in 2017, and, for whatever reason, the route coverage only went from Crewe to Llandudno, and it wasn't until 2019 when we got the full version that goes to Holyhead. Why Dovetail Games couldn't have just released the full Crewe to Holyhead route right out of the gate is anyone's guess. In any case, the Class 197 Civity DMUs didn't start entering service until November 2022, and at the time of uploading, still haven't been modelled for Train Simulator. The old North Wales coastal route comes with the Class 158, Class 175 and Class 221 units, thus presenting a different rail scene from what you'd see on the line today. The TFW services to Llandudno and Holyhead are largely dominated by 197s these days, while the 221s on Avanti West Coast were cascaded to cross-country, following the arrival of the Class 805 Avero trains in 2024. On the morning of Friday the 25th of April, which we would know in New Zealand as Anzac Day, I thought I'd do some train spotting at Llandudno Junction station, not to be confused with the other station that's just called Llandudno. I got down to the junction aboard Class 197 number 197107, and the return ticket cost me £3.60, or $8.04 NZD. Unfortunately, the Class 197 is yet another example of a modern UK train with uncomfortable seats. The Llandudno branch is only 4.8 kilometres long, with a one-way trip taking 9 minutes to complete. There is a single intermediate stop at Diganwi.
Byddwn yn teithio I cyffordd Llandudno.
We will be travelling to Llandudno Junction.
Deganwy. Rydyn ni nawr yn nesau at Deganwy.
We are now approaching Deganwy. Croeso I Deganwy. Byddwn yn teithio I cyffwrdd Llandudno. Byddwn yn teithio I cyffwrdd Llandudno. A byddwn ni'n teithio. We will be travelling to Llandudno Junction only.
Rydyn ni nawr yn nesau at cyffwrdd Llandudno. Ein stop olaf.
We are now approaching Llandudno Junction, which is our final stop.
Upon arrival at the junction, 197-107 had a short layover in the bay platform before running the 7:30 service back to Llandudno. In the meantime, let's watch a few of her classmates on other services, with the mould broken by a Class 60 diesel locomotive and Class 805 Avero. "197-015 was in charge of the Blunau-Festiniog services that day, and had a very short layover here at Llandudno Junction before another run down the Conwy Valley line. It wasn't long before 197-122 showed up to take me back to Llandudno. This unit had come all the way from Manchester Airport. This short trip on the Llandudno branch was the only time I got to ride aboard the Class 197. As for what I think of these units overall, I neither like nor dislike them, if that makes any sense. While they're all swanky and modern and what have you, they're not much of a looker, and the seats are subpar. And, shockingly, they don't improve at all on the Class 175 where coach formations are concerned. At least the engine sound is decent, and, come to think of it, the 197 is tied with the Class 777 as the newest train I rode on while I was in the UK. Later that morning, we had one more look around the waterfront before driving up to the summit of the Great Orme. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to go for a ride on the Great Orme Tramway, as we didn't want to risk being late for our train on the Talyllyn Railway. The tramway opened in 1902, and runs from Llandudno Victoria Station, which is around 15 minutes walk from the mainline station, to the top of the Great Orme headland. However, the line is split in two separate sections, and passengers have to transfer at the imaginatively named halfway station. The upper section runs entirely on its own right-of-way, with the cables visible on top of the sleepers, while the lower section features street running, and the cable is hidden in a conduit under the street. The lower section is notable for being the UK's only remaining cable-hauled street tramway, which you could argue is like the cable cars in San Francisco, California, but the trams on the Llandudno system are permanently attached to the cable. As for the gradient on the Great Orme Tramway, it gets as steep as 1 in 3.8 on the lower section and 1 in 10 on the upper section. I was surprised to find out that the tramway's track gauge is 3 foot 6 inches, or 1067 millimeters, exactly the same as the national rail network here in New Zealand. As a bonus, to close off the video, we'll briefly visit Llanrwst on the Conwy Valley line. We happened to be driving down the valley at just the right time, and managed to see 197015 again at Llanrwst station.